Thank you, Joseph. Welcome, everyone. I'm Dr. Joe Pojman, the Executive Director of Texas Alliance for Life. Joseph Kinlan has recognized our board, and I want to recognize our staff. Anita Bray, Deirdre Cooper, who's working from home, Libby Harlos, our law student intern, who better be studying right now, Michael Mario Zuniga, Amy O'Donnell, Lance Peterson, Jerry Sharp, Mark Schroeder, and Ashley Sosa. Fantastic folks. Since Roe versus Wade, since the Supreme Court overturned Roe last June, we've learned something, that education is just as important as we thought it would be, maybe more important. To that end, we have created a series of short videos to communicate three main points. Number one, the unborn child is a baby deserving of protection. Second, abortion hurts, not helps, women, families, and society. And third, Texas offers vast resources for women with unplanned and planned pregnancies. So we're calling this the Post-Roe Texas TAL video series. We already have 16 videos created or in production. So I want to show you the first.
Danger. Can physicians in Texas treat a woman who experiences a miscarriage, ectopic pregnancy, or other life-threatening pregnancy event? My name is Dr. Ingrid Skopp. I have been a practicing obstetrician-gynecologist in Texas for over 30 years, caring for tens of thousands of women and delivering more than 5,000 babies. I received my training from Washington University School of Medicine and my obstetrics and gynecology residency from the University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. I serve as the Senior Fellow and Director of Medical Affairs for the Charlotte Lozier Institute. I am also a former board member of the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists and a fellow of the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists. My research on maternal mortality, abortion complications, and women's health has been published in multiple peer-reviewed journals. I have provided expert testimony at both the state and federal levels on legislation related to abortion, including the Texas legislation. Many of us have heard claims from the news media, from political candidates, and even medical professionals that pregnant women with pregnancy complications or life-threatening risk from serious medical conditions cannot receive the treatments they need to protect their physical health or even their very lives because of the pro-life laws in Texas. I want you to know these claims are completely false. The law allows doctors to use their reasonable medical judgment to determine when intervention is necessary in a pregnancy. There is no reason a doctor like myself cannot treat pregnant women who experience a miscarriage or have life-threatening conditions like ectopic pregnancy, premature rupture of membranes, hypertensive emergencies, cancer, or a host of other conditions that can put a mother's life in danger. Treating pregnant women with these conditions by following the medical standards of care, even if it means ending the pregnancy, puts physicians in no legal danger whatsoever. First, let's remember that as a physician who treats pregnant women, I have two patients, the mother and her unborn child. My goal is to protect both patients so that each can thrive during and after the pregnancy. In rare cases, when a medical condition threatens the mother's life or puts her at serious risk of loss of a major bodily function, Texas law, or indeed the law in any state with abortion restrictions, provides an exception to allow me to save the mother's life. For example, by removing an ectopic pregnancy or inducing labor at an early gestational age to protect the mother from harm, even if knowing tragically that the unborn child will not survive, I can intervene. Never do I have to wait until the woman's death is imminent. Waiting is legally unnecessary, and it might also be malpractice. That exception in Texas pro-life laws, in the Texas Heartbeat Act, and the Human Life Protection Act has been in our state's 20-week abortion ban since 2013, and it has operated very well. Additionally, it has been allowed in the federal Hyde Amendment since the late 1970s. Indeed, virtually the same exception language was upheld by the Supreme Court in the 1992 Planned Parenthood versus Casey decision. If you are a pregnant woman whose physician tells you he or she cannot treat your complicated pregnancy because of Texas abortion laws, you may need to find a new doctor. Please visit the Texas Alliance for Life, the Charlotte Lozier Institute, or the American Association of Pro-Life Obstetricians and Gynecologists websites for more information.
Now, wasn't that sensational? Multiply that times 16, and that's what we've got coming. I think you're going to love each of these videos as we release them in coming weeks and months. Now, as you know, the Texas legislature is meeting in Austin right now through Memorial Day. And first, we are encouraging the legislature to strengthen our state's resources for women with unplanned pregnancies. We have the Alternatives to Abortion program, which will in all likelihood be funded at a much greater level than last two-year cycle, which was $100 million. So that's going to be increased from perhaps $140 million to $200 million for the biennium. Folks, there's no other state that's doing what Texas is doing. And the pro-life laws in Texas, including the Human Life Protection Act that was passed last session, has resulted in a complete collapse in the abortion industry. As we saw in Dr. Scott's video, there is a carefully crafted language to have an exception for those rare cases when the mother's life is endangered from the pregnancy. But it should not be amended to add exceptions to allow abortions when the baby was conceived in rape or when the baby has a fatal illness. Last week we held a very successful news conference in the Capitol featuring Representative Capriglione and Senator Paxton, the authors of the Human Life Protection Act. We also included Ryan Bomberger, the national speaker and founder of the Radiance Foundation, well known nationally in the pro-life circles, who, in his own words, was conceived in rape and adopted in love. Also speaking was Heather Hobbs, a resident of Texas, who was brutally raped at 19, conceived a child, and gave birth to her daughter, who is now 15. And our own Deirdre Cooper, one of our staff, she testified about the loss of her son, Bosco, who was diagnosed with a fatal illness called trisomy 18 and died during childbirth. She and her husband resisted all suggestions to abort Bosco. There are 10 bills that have been introduced in the legislature that would add these exceptions and others, and we do not want those to pass. So we spent, with those folks, we spent 2 days visiting the offices of key members, including even some of the authors of those bills. We also stopped by Governor Abbott's senior staff, who was extremely supportive. So the legislature is going for about another 5 weeks. A lot of work to do. My staff and I are down there almost every day. The Supreme Court, you have heard, address the issue of chemical abortion bills, and they were just procedural. What's going to happen is the question of whether the FDA wrongfully approved the chemical abortion pill, mifepristone is what it's called. A lot of us know it as RU46. Wrongfully approved that by ignoring the federal law and their own law regulations that require them to properly assess the safety concerns of any drug. And we think that they did not properly assess those safety concerns, that women are at risk of a variety of problems, including ectopic pregnancy, loss of future fertility, and infection and sepsis. Now, fortunately, this is going back to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals, which will have a hearing in the coming days on this. And it's on their expedited rocket agenda. For the Supreme Court, that means it's taking perhaps weeks or months instead of months or years, or in the federal court system. But anyway, one thing you can be assured of, this does not affect Texas because our law completely protects unborn babies from surgical abortions and chemical abortions. CVS, Right Mart, Walgreens are not distributing RU46, mifepristone, because of what our legislature did last session. Now, in San Antonio, there's an attempt to get voters to approve a city charter amendment. In other words, changing the constitution, so to speak, of the city of San Antonio. That is called Proposition A, and we strongly oppose it. We filed briefs in the Texas Supreme Court to get Prop A killed on procedural grounds. Those excellent briefs, which got a lot of press, notice in the press and so forth, were written by Eric Opiella. He's an expert in election law. Eric, would you mind standing? And he has been a longtime member of our leadership circle. So unfortunately, the Supreme Court answered our objections to Prop A that they are not willing to step in and rule on procedural issues until after a vote, and if it's passed, then we can file our briefs at that time. Very disappointing, but that's what we have. So for now, we have amassed a huge campaign to get San Antonio voters out to the polls and vote against Prop A. Now, early voting goes through Tuesday, and Election Day is Saturday, May 6th. We're fighting this with an aggressive ground game in San Antonio to turn out voters against Prop A, block by block, house by house, voter by voter. Michael Murillo Zuniga is heading those efforts. We also have mailers, emails, social media, texts, calls, yard signs, 4x4 signs. How about this? We're doing everything we can to identify pro-life voters in San Antonio and get them out to vote against Prop A. Now, thank you. This is very expensive, but it's critically important. Think about it. If Prop A passes San Antonio, look for similar measures in cities across our state. It will grow like cancer. So we must stop Proposition A. So thank you, Leadership Circle members. Your donations of $1,200 a year up to $10,000 or more per year has been and will continue to be critical to our efforts. That's especially true of donations to our lobby fund, Texas Alliance for Life, Inc., and our state PAC, Political Action Committee, which is obviously necessary. That's what we have to use to stop Prop A. Now, I know the IRS does not allow those donations to be tax deductible. I experienced that myself. But believe me, the other side is raising huge amounts of money for their non-tax deductible funds, and we have to do as much or better. So if you're not a member of the Leadership Circle, I really encourage you to join us. There are cards on the tables that make it really easy. So let me introduce our speaker. State Representative Steve Allison represents House District 121 in Bexar County. This is his third session in the House. He was first elected in November of 2018 with the endorsement of Texas Alliance for Life PAC. Representative Allison is a graduate of Texas Christian University and University of Houston Law School. He and his wife Peggy met at their freshman year at TCU, and they've been happily married for 53 years. I still remember his campaign picture, which is beautiful family, all these people in the family, and I thought, of course he's going to win because everybody wants to join that team. They have 2 sons, 6 grandchildren, and a golden retriever. He and his wife Peggy are longstanding members of St. Mark's Episcopal Church, where they both have taught children Sunday school, and Steve has served on the vestry. Representative Allison has earned a 100% pro-life voting record. Please welcome State Representative Steve Allison.